I guess maybe the one not complaint, but maybe the one concern I would have is that they've got such a focus on this huge overworld that they have to make sure that it can look that good everywhere, and that it can be an interesting overworld to explore, and not just one that's visually entrancing too, which is a little bit of a problem with Wind Waker. I love how open the game gets after you've got the first few the not pendants, but the pearls or whatever. And after you do all that and pull the Master Sword, the game really opens up. But I feel like even though there's a bajillion islands to explore and everything, a lot of them are kind of small and not content heavy, and there's a whole lot of empty space on the overworld. So that's something that I don't want to see Zelda U, I don't want them to do that again. I love the visual style, and I hope they then flesh out the overworld more. And I'm hopeful that they will, just because of how many times they've delayed this and the nature of the delays, the way they talked about it. So, yeah, just sort of playing Wind Waker and exploring this beautiful but kind of empty world has me thinking a lot about Zelda U. And thank Nehru for the Swift sale. Like, it makes the game so much easier.
When I first encountered Wind Waker, I was at this really rough time in my life where I was like in a wheelchair, and so the leisureliness of just sailing was really like therapeutic for me. So I actually, when I was playing through Wind Waker again, I didn't necessarily enjoy it more because I was going faster, but I was very surprised by how quickly the game was breezing by. Like, I 100%ed that game in like 12 hours, which I didn't even think was possible. Like, I thought it would have taken much longer for me. Anyway, so I think that's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
I like also what you said about the islands sort of feeling bare bones. Because I think it raises kind of an interesting point, which is that you said that you felt like they just didn't have a lot of content, like a lot of stuff to do on them, I guess is what I thought you meant. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if Zelda U is going to focus too much on trying to have stuff to do everywhere, the world's going to feel kind of artificial. So I think I'd kind of iterate off of what you said and say that instead of having sort of like gameplay type content squeezed into every square inch, every area should at least be interesting, whether it's interesting to look at, just interesting to walk around in, different in some way than the areas around it. Like, all those things can be just as compelling as having something to do, like some task to do from a gameplay perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I hope that the areas that do have a gameplay-oriented task to fulfill, I hope that those tasks are, first of all, not ridiculously obvious. Because if you look at, and the example that comes immediately to mind right now, just because I've been playing it lately, is Hyrule Warriors, where like the rocks that you bomb are these giant things in the middle of you can't miss them ever. And to some extent that draws from like the way that the bombable rocks were in Wind Waker and some others maybe. I really hope that the cues are not so obvious. Like, for example, something that you can grab with the hook shot, I hope isn't a blue and red target like it was in Skyward Sword. I hope it's like a rock sort of protruding out in a weird way. That's I mean, I hope it's not you gotta like scan the world at every game, at every camera angle and be ridiculously meticulous.
It doesn't need to be Metroid Prime.
World, right. So I hope they balance that well.
Well, I could see them finding ways to kind of get around the idea of it being a pixel hunt. Because I agree with you that, like, when the things that you can bomb apart are really obvious, it's not fun anymore. Like, I'd love to see cracked walls that are actually, you have to really be paying attention to spot them. But I think if they leverage the map correctly, if in particular if they leverage the map the way they did in Wind Waker, where you can get maps that kind of show you where secrets are, they can get around that problem where the things are so obscure you can't find them. But at the same time, like, you wouldn't necessarily need a map to find this bombable wall if you're paying attention. But, if you missed it, then you'll know, there might be something here that I should go back to if you find the map later or something like that.
Yeah, and that was another point I was going to bring up. I'd say I have some notes written down, but it's really more like the ramblings of a madman. And so one of the things I have on there is that I'm really enjoying just sort of the sense of adventure of Wind Waker. I think it probably has more of that than any other 3D Zelda. Just adventure and exploration, and a big part of that is how you have to decipher clues and hunt for treasure, and you have to uncover the map bit by bit. I mean, I think there's 49 squares, whereas in a lot of more recent Zelda games, it's like, you reached a new new area. Here's 1/4 of the whole map filled in for you. Boom, there you go. So
right.
I hope... I'm not real... I don't necessarily think this is going to happen based on what we've seen. I'm going to kind of assume it won't happen. But it would be nice if Zelda U did something similar to that, where, you know, it unveiled the map to you in chunks as you discovered new areas, as opposed to just revealing huge sections of land or almost the whole map earlier.
Sure. And jumping back to what you were saying, Alex, about sort of the clues and the different kinds of maps that can reveal secrets, I hope that however they iterate on Miiverse with the NX, and obviously Miiverse for the Wii U version, that they integrate that well in a way to for Zelda U that you can really get those clues without having to, as you said, pixel hunt, or without having, you know, these really obvious protrusions. Like, actually, I mentioned I had just started Dark Souls. I played for like about an hour ago, and the way that they do. Like, they have this messaging system that's very similar to Miiverse in that you'll be walking around and there's a sort of little, like, glowing clue on the ground. And that way, you know, you can read those, and those are left from other players that will say, you know, like, try this spell, or this is a trap. So... Yeah,
that's always been something that I've imagined would be brought in. I know back in 2013 when we first kind of heard about the new Zelda game, Aonuma said that it wouldn't just be a solitary experience.
Yeah.
So as soon as I played Dark Souls, that was the first thing that came to mind was messages.
Definitely.
And Wind Waker already, you know, as we know, experimented with that, but not in quite the same way, because the messages kind of were scattered randomly throughout the world, whereas in Dark Souls, they're placed in a specific place.
Right.
You get a lot of people trolling you in Dark Souls, too, so look forward to that. And I hope that they bring that kind of feature into Zelda U as well.
Hello everybody, thank you for listening to this Nintendo Week clip, NWC. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to us here on YouTube for more highlights and discussion videos from Nintendo Week podcast, or subscribe to us on iTunes for weekly breakdowns of all your Nintendo news, discussion segments on subjects, games, and more, and tons of other features. Thanks for listening, and we will see you tomorrow with another NWC.